Why? Why did he do that? There was a man who was called a prophet, who walked the same path every morning. Many people loved him, some hated him. And every morning on his journey, he would walk past one of the haters. A woman who stood there every day, and as he passed, threw garbage at him. But rather than strike back or condemn her, the man just walked his way. And he would not change his path. No, he walked that same path every day, and every day she stood there and pelted him. But then came a day when she wasn't there. And the garbage stopped flying. And he rejoiced, right? No. He sought her out. And when he discovered she was ill, he worked with her to regain her health. Why would he do that? Because that's what love required. This is a story about Muhammad. It was posted this week by an Islamic author in the hopes of showing the world in the wake of the terrorist attacks in France that properly understood, Islam does indeed support free speech and does not support acts of retribution. We know he's fighting a losing battle for many. There will always be those who look at the Quran and they highlight its less appealing passages. These folks usually forget that our Bible has some things in it too. For example, our Bible never condemns slavery. According to the Bible, we are supposed to stone anyone who does not support, or rather, observe the Sabbath. I don't see my wife here today. Hope she's sick. And in Deuteronomy, there's even a call to eliminate all life in any town, cattle included, where it is found that folks have been worshiping other gods. Part of our task is to remind our brothers and sisters that the vast, vast majority of Muslims, just like the vast, vast majority of Christians, are decent, tolerant people. Why did he do that? Well, that's a question that gets asked a lot of Jesus when folks read today's story. You want to observe some rather sleep-inducing dialogue? Well, log on to a page on the internet where pastors are discussing this event. We tend to get into our own little world on this one. It's kind of like, I don't know, when stats geeks start talking baseball, or video gamers start talking controllers and screens and systems, or when fashionistas are talking about what's in, what's out, what's coming. The problem with us pastors, of course, is when we get a little too caught up in that minutia and bring the eye-rolling, sleep-inducing stuff to you on a Sunday morning and end up kind of missing the point. You see, I think Jesus gets baptized for a pretty simple reason. He would be our leader. He is our leader. But he's also our example. And being humble before God is something Christians are always to emulate. It's one of the many examples of how to live that Christ gave us. A really interesting book came out this week. It's called Churchless. And it's put out by the Barna Group. And the Barna Group, they research all things church in the United States. And what this research has shown is something we, I think, can observe. As we look at our neighbors, as we look at congregations around us. The number of people with no church affiliation at all in this country is skyrocketing. Since the early 2000s, that number has gone from 33% to 43%. And 33% of that 43% used to go to church. They just stopped completely. Pretty sobering stuff. But when the research gets into the why, that's interesting. And one of the really interesting things they find is this. The churchless folks, those who have walked away, see no difference in the way churched folks live their lives. In other words, they don't see how Christ makes a difference in the lives of churched Christians. And boy, that got me thinking. How do people see our faith in action? How do they see that we are different because of Jesus? Because, yeah, you can't control what people think about you. But we do have a responsibility for living in a way that people can look at and say, Christ makes a difference to him or her. Not living like we've got our get out of hell free card and now we just do whatever we want. Well, the other day as I was looking at all of this and trying to soak it all in, one of the staff members posted on Facebook that there was a young family in the area in need. And just like that, members of this church rose up and met the need. Wow. That made me feel good. There it was, a concrete example of how Christ makes us different. A concrete example of why we do what we do. And all the outreach we do, all the effort that goes into putting together this huge clothing drive or making meals for others or getting that Power Packs program off the ground, hooray. That's great. We're showing Christ makes a difference. Our kids on Wednesday night, braving frigid temperatures to give pay-it-forward gifts, giving to complete strangers, encouraging them to take the example of Jesus and give for others. That was awesome. Those same kids in senior high going to Philadelphia and working for a whole week with the homeless. It's great. And why? Because that's what Christians do. There's a lot to be happy about here. And there's lots more, and we're always adding stuff. But I think there's more to consider. When we think about our example of Jesus and how we're called to live our life. Of course, public perception of how Christians should act is that Christians aren't supposed to have any fun, right? Thankfully, we all know better than that. But do we dish the dirt? Do we make ourselves feel better about ourselves by tearing down others? Or do we try to steer the conversation to something positive when we see someone is getting ripped apart and slandered? Are we really about others, or is it mostly about me? Do we treat people as disposable? Do we value some people more because, well, maybe they have some wealth, or maybe their ideas are exactly like our ideas? Do we listen to people whose ideas differ from our own? Or do we label them idiots? Or worse? Do we listen at all? Do we judge, and then judge, and then judge some more? Of course, all of us have done some of the things on that list and do them. Of course. We're sinners. We share the sin of the human family. And we're forgiven. We know that. But you know that old saying, Christians aren't perfect, just forgiven. It's a nice saying. It's true. But obviously it's not real convincing to the church listener. And it's a little bit too much of an easy way out. Because faith isn't a license to just do whatever you want. It's a call. It is a call to grow in Jesus and become more like Jesus. And by the way, becoming more and more like Jesus, that's the key to more and more realizing the joy of God in your life. And when people see that joy of God in your life, guess what? That's what makes them want to come to church. I think this is, all of this, was what Jesus was doing that day in that river. He was immersing himself in the way and in the love of God. How does the world perceive us as different? Jesus calls us to be transformed. Jesus calls us to be transformed in every sense by taking our life and in every sense doing what love demands. And look what happened when Jesus did it. Boy, God responded. And when we do what love demands, God will respond. With loving kind, with joy, and with a sense of fulfillment that goes way past living just for me ever can achieve. Do what love demands, and others will see it. Do it in your good works. Do it in your actions. Do it in how you live. We gather here for a reason. Let the world see why.